Hi everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach, and I've been helping people learning about self-differentiation for 45 years. And this video is entitled Neutral Responses, the Power to Self-Differentiate. I hope you'll join my YouTube channel and you'll click the bell to be notified for new videos that come out. I also have a master class coming up. It should be in December or January. You can check on my website for that. And I hope you'll join me for that 4-hour master class that we'll be doing together. And it's on reactivity and reducing your reactivity. I think it will really help a lot of folks. So what are neutral responses? And neutral responses are very helpful as a means to stay yourself while connected with other people. Someone says to you, "I'm so upset that you're still dating that woman." Well, I'm sorry to hear you're upset. And again, it's a neutral response. I'm not addressing the push or pull or the defensive or being defensive or reactive. And I'm ignoring the issue that they have, which would be with me or you dating that woman. And I'm ignoring that issue, which is my issue and my choice, not theirs. So why would I address that? Why would I argue with them about who I'm dating? That's not for them to control or decide. So I'd simply say, well, I'm sorry to hear you're upset about that. Hey, you want to grab some lunch? I'm sorry to hear you're upset about that. Hey, how's Dad doing? Again, we are not pulled into the issue that they have. We stay more calm. We stay less reactive. So neutral responses are self-differentiation moves when other people are trying to bait us or pull us in with their issues or enmeshment. They are a don't take the bait responses is what they are. Because many times, if somebody says, "Are you still dating that woman?" They're baiting me about my dating life. Well, I don't need to sort that through with them. I don't need to get their approval. And remember, there are a couple of rules that are really important. You don't have to answer any question that everyone or anyone asks of you, except to a police officer, a judge, a boss, or something like that. You are not required to answer any question. But you also don't have to get reactive to not answer it. And second of all, you never have to address the issues that are yours, not theirs, even though they think it's an issue for them too. Obviously, in the first statement, they were upset, "I'm dating this woman," or "still dating this woman." Well, that's their issue if they're upset with me dating her. It's not my issue. And I don't have to address other people's emotional states. That will just get me pulled in and baited in. Neutral statements help us keep us more separate while staying connected. I don't have to run away, nor do I have to be reactive or conflictual with them. Reactivity causes more distance, I have to run away, or conflict. And conflict is a result of reactivity. Just as overfunctioning can be as a result of reactivity, triangles as a result of reactivity, running away a result of reactivity, or complying and giving in and just going along with whatever they say and trying to make them feel better about the issue is reactivity. Neutral responses guide and force us to deal with what we really need to deal with or to work on. If we stay neutral, it brings up our issues to the forefront. In other words, because a lot of people say, well, that's hard for me to do, Jerry. It's hard for me to be neutral. I know it's hard. I've been practicing it for decades. It takes practice, and it's not easy. And many people say, oh, it just seems so easy for you. No, it hasn't been easy. It's taken me a long time to develop a healthier self and neutral responses. And that helps to keep me calm and thinking rather than reactive and feeling. And then my thoughts get all jumbled up. And when you're challenged to give a neutral response, just like when I go to the person who says, are you still dating that woman? And I go, well, I'm sorry to hear that's upsetting to you. And then I stop, find out what that brings up for you. And often what would be brought up for me is I'm trying to get their acceptance and I'm acceptance seeking. I'm trying to get their approval and I'm approval seeking. I'm wishing they would know me better. I wish they had a better relationship with me. But all of those are immature wishes and wants. This is the way they are, and I'm accepting the way they are, but I have to deal with my neediness if I give a neutral response. And that's a healthy thing to do. Deal with your issues rather than trying to resolve those issues by, oh, well, let me tell you, she's really nice. I think you'd really like her. No, she's not like she used to be. And then I'm defensive, I'm reactive, and I'm trying for approval seeking. Neutral responses include 2 or 3 components. One is empathy or understanding. Second is declaring self. And thirdly, maybe being silent or saying less and not taking the bait. And when I said, oh my, you must be upset about that issue. Hey, what are we going to have for lunch? I was empathetic. I simply remained silent about the issue because it's not theirs to confront me with. It's my dating life. Why are they interfering in my dating life? Now, they could say, are you still dating that woman? And I could declare self, which is one of the components, and I could say, well, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm sorry you feel upset about that. Hey, what do you want to do today? Neutral responses include taking a stance that avoids their issues, their feelings, and their reactivity about my life. But I want to take a stance that it's not my circus, not my monkeys. If you're upset about me dating this woman, that's your monkeys, your circus. It's not mine. Because I get to decide who I date, for how long, in what way, or what kind of relationship I have. If you're upset by it, then we're enmeshed. Because adults respect other adults and respect other adults' choices. It doesn't mean we can't be caring or concerned if there's real problems with a relationship that we want to raise with another adult, but we do that respectfully, not reactively. Neutral responses help us to stay calm because often we engage others with our intensity and reactivity. And you can tell you're being reactive if you feel like you want to lecture, criticize, whine, complain, try to get acceptance, or try to be fused or have more togetherness or have this warm fusion that we have. Versus being neutral and non-judgmental and staying out of their circus. Because by me staying out of their circus, I'm telegraphing them to stay out of my circus. Who I'm dating is my circus, my monkeys. It's not your circus, your monkeys. Actually, this is a means by which we move closer to become more separate. I become empathetic, don't get into the issues that are theirs, And so I stay connected while being myself with a neutral response. And relationships are paradoxical. They're a paradox. To be closer, we need more separateness. To be more separate, we need more closeness. Both of those are true. And that's what neutral responses can help me with, is the second one. More separateness. To be more separate, we need to be closer. I'm engaging the person, but I'm not engaging in their monkeys, their circus about me. And so we actually are closer because I'm not rejecting them. I'm just not reacting to their reactivity. Neutral responses help us stay connected without cutting off and without being reactive. When our reactivity is activated by others, learning to give neutral responses help us reduce our reactivity and keeps us more calm and often has a positive effect on others. My coaching involves lots of role plays and using neutral and self-differentiating responses to grow ourselves up, to keep calm, and change the relationship dynamics and emotional process. Here's some examples of some neutral responses. Here's a detriangulation neutral response, because triangles often are a part of reactivity. A parent says, "Do you know what your sister did to me?" "No, but it must have upset you. I hope you've talked to her about it." "Not my circus, not my monkeys. Her circus, her monkeys. My sister's circus, her monkeys. But I can be concerned that she was upset. That's fine. I can be empathetic. Your husband told your father that he didn't really like the lamb we had for dinner. I think that is rude, and I hope you will talk to him, Mary." "Mom, I don't know if he said that or not. I assume he did, but maybe you or Dad could talk to him about what he said. I thought the lamb was great." "Not my circus, not my monkeys. Your upsetness doesn't become something I own. It becomes something you have to take responsibility for as an adult, and an adult relationship with other people, without me triangulating in it." Rather than, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mom, that he said that. I'll go and talk to him. I hope everything's okay. I thought the lamb was great." Now I'm enmeshed. Now I'm looking for acceptance and approval. And now she's parenting me, and now I got to go parent my husband. Mary has to go parent her husband. And that's not going to work out well in their marriage. "Jerry, your son threw a cigarette butt in my flower garden." "Well, that seems rude. You may want to talk to him about that." Mom says, "But that is why I'm telling you. And that's why I'm telling you." "Mom, my parenting years stopped long ago. I would just go and talk to him about his behavior or rudeness or insensitivity." Not my circus, not my monkeys. If my son's 35 years old, why am I supposed to go parent him? Because he did something you didn't like. You go and talk to him as an adult. And in fact, he'd probably be happy to talk with you about that and, might apologize or whatever. But still, not my monkey, not my circus. Saying no without feeling guilty responses are part of neutral responses we can have. "I want you and your family to be here on Christmas Eve for supper, and you probably should arrive about 5 p.m. And because of the dating of this video, the holidays are coming up. "I know we've always come to your house, Dad, on Christmas Eve, but we've decided to do something special for our family Christmas Eve this year. So I'd like to plan a different day and time with you and Mom." You have to be kidding, Dad said. No kid of mine would not show up for Christmas Eve dinner. Shame. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Guilt. It's already October and we're planning our normal family gathering with all the family. Well, Dad, we just recently decided this and we felt 2 months' notice would be enough and plenty of time to let you know. But, well, you know this will cause us as a family not to be with everyone on the same day, and it will upset everybody, and your mom will feel hurt. Well, Sally and I are looking forward to something different and special for our own family this Christmas Eve. We would be available any other time to get together, Dad. Now, if you notice, I didn't, not my circus, not my monkeys, that everyone else would be upset. Mom would be hurt. I'm not making anybody be hurt. I'm declaring something that I would like to do as an adult and with my own family. I don't have to fix everybody's feelings about that. Now, I could be more empathetic and say, I'm sure this change probably would be, and I think I even said, I'm sure that might feel disappointing, Dad. So I can be empathetic. I'm sure Mom might be disappointed. My siblings might be disappointed. But this is something that, Sally and I want to do. And just because they're disappointed doesn't mean I have to live under the threat that if they're disappointed, I'd better change. Welcome to the world of disappointment. We all have disappointments. And I'm not doing this with any malice. If you notice in my response, I share some empathy. I declared myself of what we wanted to do. I stayed silent about some things I have no control over, like how everyone will be upset. I can't fix all of that and don't need to. It's not for me to fix anyway. And if you'd like, Dad, I could say, if you'd like, Dad, I'd be happy to tell Mom and tell the siblings what Sally and I plan to do this year. So I'm willing to take the heat from them, but I'll do the same neutral responses with them and go, I'm sure it's disappointing, but this is what we've chosen to do. And so I would talk with each one individually. I don't have to have Dad go tell them all. Dad, I'm willing to go and talk to everybody. Don't worry about that. It's my choice. And I don't have to triangle through Mom and Dad to tell siblings and everybody. Then everybody gets in an uproar and it becomes a major triangulated mess. I care about the feelings of others, but I keep my foot nailed to the floor so I can only go around in these circles and not be persuaded to give in or to comply. So I want my foot nailed to the floor this is what we're doing for Christmas Eve, and we're not doing what we've always done with the family for Christmas Eve. I'm just nailing my foot to the floor. Now, I don't mind talking about how empathetic I feel or how that may feel disappointing or hurtful to Mom, if that's what she's going to feel. But I have no control over that. They are not my monkeys, not my circus. I care, but it's still not my circus. Those are your feelings, not feelings I'm making everybody have. Because believe it or not, a family could be, well, I understand that. Why don't we plan another day? Or why don't you get together with the siblings at this time, Mom and Dad at this time? I mean, there's lots of options. To work on neutral responses, we can learn to do these things because it takes practice. And again, I've had people share with me, oh, Jerry, you're just so good at those neutral responses. You just know what to say. There were long, long years I had no idea what to say. And I would say the wrong things. I would get reactive. I would try to comply. I would try to fix everybody's feelings. I did all of that. Then I began to work on giving neutral responses in a calm way, which calms me down and many times helps to keep the other person calm down. Because Calmness can be contagious if you hold on to it. You can first write down what they might challenge you about. Write down your possible responses that are non-reactive. Or as I've talked about, what would Betty do? What would Betty say? Think you're the neighbor, and how would your neighbor respond to your parents about changing Christmas Eve? Or how would Betty share with them about not being able to come to Christmas Eve? Somebody who's detached and not enmeshed. What would Betty say? Or you can say, what would Jerry say? I have a lot of people who do that too and say, well, I'm trying to think, well, what would Jerry say in this situation? You can write down your possible responses and practice them so you do not go into autopilot or reactivity pilot when you are addressing difficult or highly charged situations. Use a calm and mature voice. Make sure you are calm. You can even keep it low level. Don't make it high level volume. Now, there may be a challenge. And they may say, oh, well, this can't be. I mean, we got to change this. What would you say if they said, and you probably know what their challenge would be. What would be your next response? What would their next challenge be? What would your next response be? And if you have that worked out ahead of time, you'll be a lot more calmer and be ready. And many times we can predict the behavior of other people in our family. We know exactly what they're going to say. Because when I do role plays with clients, they know exactly what their families would say. And then I would say this, and I'd say, well, what would your sister say to that? What would your husband say if I said that? And they know. Because we know what those responses are going to be for the most part. You can prepare your neutral, non-reactive responses. And of course, whenever we make a change, there's 3 stages of resistance to go through. Why are you doing this? Secondly, you need to stop doing this. And fourthly, stop doing this or else. And if we can stay calm, neutral, and non-reactive through all those stages, then a greater acceptance tends to come over time. And we're training others to experience and accept the new me without doing harm, without doing damage. I don't have to yell or be in conflict or overfunction or triangulate, or I don't have to do any of those things. In me choosing to be me. Over time, they're going to go, well, you know how Jerry is. He's just going to do whatever he wants to do. Well, good. That's what I want to do in my life, is do whatever I want to do. I'm an adult. I get to do that. Now, that doesn't mean I don't care about my family or care about my spouse, care about my kids. I care about neighbors. I care about everyone. But I still have a right to do what I want to do as an adult. I want to share with you, I've got that 4-hour masterclass coming up probably in December or January, taught by me. We will be sending out notices to everyone on our email list, reducing your reactivity. I hope you'll click subscribe, click the bell so you can be notified when new videos come out. Join as a YouTube member. That really helps us to produce these videos. It only costs $1.99 a month. And you can join as a YouTube member, and you can see the button for join and become a paid member for $1.99 a month. And that helps us produce these videos for you. I hope you'll follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day. And be wise.
Hey, hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. And this video is entitled Emotional Cutoffs and False Independence. And I have joining with me today, Yitz Goldberg, who works with us here at Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. And it's always great to have him join me, and we can have these conversations. And by the way, this is a conversation about this topic. It's not necessarily a lecture and all that. It's a conversation that Yitz and I have about Bowen family systems theory, but also it has a healing dynamic to it that we want to bring to you. Welcome, Yitz. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Jerry, great to be here again.
Would you like to introduce our topic today?
Yeah, I can introduce our topic. So today we are going to talk about emotional cutoffs and false independence. And this conversation started after Jerry and I read a quote from Edwin Friedman. And the quote goes like this: individuals who are cut off from their families generally do not heal until they have been reconnected. Now, I know this could be a heavy statement for some, so we are going to unfold it slowly.
Right. And we do want to unpack that. Well, and I think there are some confusions around terms. And we're going to be talking about the emotional cutoff as understood in Bowen family systems theory or Friedman family systems theory. Both are very closely aligned. And there's cutoffs, there's going no contact, there's low contact. There is the old I don't talk to them anymore view. There's, and there's gray rock. There's all kinds of ways of kind of distancing in a relationship. And though I'm not going to talk about all of those, each one of those topics, I do want to talk primarily about cutoffs and emotional cutoffs as we understand them in Bowen family systems theory, and to help you understand cutoffs more. And I don't believe a cutoff is equivalent to going no contact, and we'll be talking why that is as we talk today. So we do understand there are instances in which people have no other choice but to be no contact with some people or some family members. So I want to make that very clear from the start. But that still, could affect us. Though it may be worth the affecting if we're dealing with someone who is a malignant narcissist or someone such as that.
Yeah. To me, a cutoff is an act of reactivity. And therefore it could sabotage our healing because the actual act is not necessarily a conscious act, but it's a reactive act. And you talk about the difference between a cutoff and between, you call it distancing?
Or no contact?
No contact.
Right.
And maybe it could be important to elaborate on that a bit to get a better understanding of when something we're coming from immaturity and reactivity, and when it's coming from like a conscious, thoughtful process.
Well, and you've just kind of explained it, that no contact is a thoughtful, conscious, mature choice. It's not a reactive choice because I can't manage the relationship because I'm emotionally immature. It's that I'm maturely deciding this is not a good choice for me. This is something I have to choose to go low or no contact with someone. Whereas a cutoff is, as you mentioned, I believe and agree with you, it's a reactivity. No contact is not a reactivity. It is a mature choice based on the facts. Cutoffs, emotional cutoffs, are, as I imagine them and think of them as reactivity, they align more with emotional immaturity and they are a means for us to manage our lack of differentiation, our undifferentiation. And we use cutoffs to manage that. Can I give you maybe a good example of one?
Yeah.
Though kind of innocently, an innocent kind of one. You notice you are walking down the sidewalk and you notice another person, they don't notice you. And you notice they're a person from a long time ago, that there were some struggles between you and them, but you guys haven't been in contact forever. You know, there really is no relationship. And so you choose to go to the other side of the street to avoid that person. And I think of that as a kind of a mini cutoff. It's an emotional reaction. You know, I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know if they're going to say anything. And I have relations in the past that could be awkward or, you know, difficult if I see someone. But what I try to do is not deal with my immaturity or fear or embarrassment or whatever I might be feeling. And I could have all those because maybe I was the one in the wrong back then. You know, maybe they were in the right and I was one in the wrong. And so I'll go over to the other side of the street so we don't see each other. Though many times you end up kind of seeing each other many times anyway. But if not, I'll avoid that versus continuing to walk down the street and deal with whatever happens or doesn't happen. If we see each other, you know, I can always acknowledge them and go, hi, and go on. You know, and or wait for them to acknowledge me. And if they don't, they don't. But it's moving over to the other side to avoid that, which is a part of that immaturity in there.
In that example, there's a sense of automatic, like there wasn't any thought put into you just going to the other side of the sidewalk. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, because when we act from that place, then we are acting from our immaturity and we're not doing what we think necessarily is right.
Or what an adult, a mature adult who owns their own behavior and life and choices and failings, you know, say we've had an awkward moment in the past. And you're right, it can be awkward. And then my limbic system, that emotional system, and I think Bowen talks about the emotional system as kind of equivalent to the instinctual system that we have. When he thinks of emotions as instinctual, feelings are something different, but that emotional system fires, and then you feel awkward, fear of shame, fearful, insecure, you know, fight or flight kind of thing going on. And then you go to the other side of the street when really this person actually has posed no threat to me at all at this point. I just happen to see them. It's been decades since we've seen each other. And I have no reason that anything rationally would be a real threat to me. And
the title is Emotional Cutoff and False Independence. And it seems like that when we cut off, it's more physically, and we think it's emotionally cutting off as well. But we are not cutting off emotionally from that person, right? We stay reactive. It may be silent, it may be quiet, it may be kind of pushed away, but we are still staying reactive to that person. And I wanted to ask you, why would you say that cutting off is false independence?
And I think and that's an excellent question. And I remember early on in my own recovery, as I began to learn about emotional cutoffs, that I was doing those often. And assuming I was being independent in doing that. I'm being grown up. I'm being independent. I'm, okay, I'm not going to talk to my mother because she just guilted me in our last meeting. So I'm not going to talk to her anymore. Whew, now I feel independent from her. And I'm being myself. When I haven't addressed the issue with her, I haven't been mature with her about the guilt. I haven't defined or expressed any boundaries. I'm just going to cut off. And I feel so grown up and independent now. But really, it's a false independence because I'm still vulnerable to the guilt. And guess where else I will start to be vulnerable to the guilt also?
In other relationships?
In other relationships. So I haven't resolved it here with mom. Now I'm not going to resolve it here with other people. And so isn't it a false independence? Or a false grown-upness that, oh, well, I'll show mom. She'll know I'm angry with her if I don't call her or if I don't go see her. And she'll know she shouldn't have guilted me. What? That's all, mental gymnastics to excuse or to, make excuses for my cutoff. Now, do I feel less anxious and maybe a little more stable if I do the cutoff? Yes, I do, because now I don't have to deal with mom's guilt tripping and saying, well, I'll just use my mom guilt tripping. I don't have to deal with that. So I feel more stable. Well, that must be healing. That must be growing up. If I feel more stable and more, the problem is it's kind of a false stability. Yes, it does provide some measure of relief, but it doesn't heal the core issue inside me, which prompted the cutoff in the first place that I didn't want to deal with. I don't want boundaries. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to have to function differently with my mom because of how she functions. I just want to run away and blame her, right? Now we have the blaming going on. And with the blaming, then I don't have to look at me. As long as, what, if you knew my mom and you knew how guilt tripping she was, you do this too. It's like, it's all kind of a tempest in a teapot.
Yeah. I wrote a note before where it says that cutting off is a distancing act and setting boundaries is not. And it's very hard to stay in contact and to set boundaries in certain situations. And like you say, there could be certain situations where someone takes a step back because they need that stability, right? That you've mentioned that could be when someone is cut, that could happen when someone is cut off. But it's what you do with that time and with that extra air, right? That extra space that you have of stability.
When you have
that will
time
heal,
of stability.
that can heal, or maybe even help you build yourself in a way that you could recreate the contact in a healthier manner with better boundaries, with less reactivity, with more maturity. So if already we are cut off, we could use that time to reconnect, not necessarily directly at that stage, right? It could start with just doing some inner work with our own reactivity.
Right.
And I think that's something that's important to remember.
No, excellent point. And I'm glad you brought that up. That is so well stated. And you're right. It depends on what we do with that time. If we have a break, we're taking a time out. But some people believe the time out is the goal, not the means. Oh, well, I've taken a time out there. I'm done. I'm just gonna, and then we end up spending cutoff after cutoff after cutoff. And excuse me. And then one of the things I also learned was if I cut off and don't deal with that emotional process and how I function in that emotional process, then in some ways I kind of solidify the problem within myself. And that problem, just as I was saying, well, now I'm going to be vulnerable to other people who would guilt trip me because I've now solidified that problem in there. And I don't want to solidify problems. I want to resolve them and work through them. And early on in my work of self-differentiation, poor as it was, and poor as I do it, I did learn that I thought it was interesting that if here's me, I'm the pin, and here's the family, or here's the person, or here's the issue, that a cutoff, we move this way. We move this way as a cutoff. I want to get some distance, which can be useful at times, but like you say, it depends on what you're going to do with it. And what I began to learn in family systems thinking is, but the real way to heal is to move this way and go through and go past the family and past the issue, rather than go away from the issue, go through it. And then I'm truly changed. I'm truly a different person. This, I may not be a different person. This, I'm going to be a different person.
Right.
You know,
I'm gonna,
how am I?
but you said I will be a different person, and I think that's important because when you go through someone,
Right,
it doesn't mean
it's
changing them.
correct.
It means changing you.
And when we cut off, we tend to lose that opportunity to change ourselves. And also, why do we cut off many times? Because we can't change them. I can't get my mom to stop guilt tripping me, so I'll just cut off. Well, I'm still focused
and we
on
can
getting
change
her
us
to,
as well.
and
Like that, you said that the cutting off is because we can't change them, and I will add that the cutting off is because also that we are struggling to change ourselves without changing them.
well said. Absolutely well said. And you're right. It's, we can't change them, we can't change us, or we're having struggles with that.
Yeah.
And so if we begin to think about it differently, like you and I have been talking about it, I think we can do better at how we approach issues and problems, and not claim that independence. It's no different than when somebody says, well, I've divorced him, he's such a jerk, and I don't even want to say his name, but I'm divorced him and I'm past it. Do you think they're past it? No, they've just cut off. They've done a legal cutoff and an emotional cutoff. That X is still raging inside of them. It you know, you haven't healed it. You've just knocked it off the stage, you know, or what? But it's still around, and you're still participating in this anger and resentment. And then we take all of that into the next marriage. Then we have another problem. And again, that's the issue with cutoffs, is we just keep taking it into other relationships rather than resolving that. And that's why when I work with couples, I try to help them resolve, if they happen to have a divorce, resolve that divorce emotionally, where they can come to see it in a more balanced way. And I don't mean by that sugarcoating anything. I don't mean by that looking at someone as being more healthy or behaving well when they weren't. You know, I'm not saying that, but at some point we have to let it go. You know, we need to let it go and set boundaries and learn ourselves, or at least that's the ideal, as we try to work on letting it go and setting boundaries.
Yeah. The key over here will be managing ourselves and not the system or the other. And that just keeps the focus towards ourselves and allows us to approach it from a more mature, differentiated perspective.
Right. And if I can, and for me, it was like not going to the other side of the street was a task. It was okay, well, I need to learn to work on this. So I'm not going to walk to the other side of the street. Well, what am I going to do if I see them or if we make eye contact? Well, what are you going to do? Do you want to say hi? Do you not want to say hi? How can I act as naturally and normally and as I wish and as I am as a person with them? And let's say I had wronged them or something like that. I can still say hi and then just go on. I'm not trying to put myself in their face. How would I treat any human being that would be walking along the street? This person, we just happen to have a history. But how would I treat them? And I want to do that. If they don't want to say, and I fully expect if they don't want to say hi back to me, they don't have to. And I won't be hurt and, rejected and all. No, I'm doing what I want to do by principle and by values and by beliefs. And I want to be mature in that way. I don't have to go to the other side of the street to avoid the awkwardness. They can do whatever they want to do. If they want to go to the other side of the street, they can. But I didn't make them go to the other side of the street. So that's and that's okay. And I tend to like the notion when I talk to people about helping them with resolving relationships. I would rather take a negative relationship and be myself so much in a mature way. I don't mean in a pushy or rejecting way, in a mature way, that they choose the cutoff or they choose the no contact. Because it will, I think, in a Bowen system way of thinking, it will hurt me less if I do that. If you cut off from me, that's not me wounding my own emotional process. That's you doing your emotional process.
Yeah, I think Edwin Friedman also says that self-differentiation triggers sabotage. So
and it does.
That's aligned with that.
Absolutely. And that's where Bowen and, well, I won't get into the weeds, but that's one of the statements that Bowen and Friedman would disagree about. But that's into the weeds. We'll stay out of there. I just had learned that and had become aware of that, so I thought it was an interesting thought. But you're right. You're right. If we're going to be self-differentiated, it's going to challenge other people. It certainly will.
Yeah.
Well, is there any other comments you want to make today before we close out today?
Yeah, I could comment on the initial quote / statement that I read, which is individuals who are cut off from their families generally do not heal until they have been reconnected. And we were talking before this video that it sounds, at least when I read it at first, it sounded a bit black and white, as if there's no other reality. And the more I thought about it, it sounds like there's more truth to it than I would like to think. But the following thought was that sometimes it might be okay. I would say differently. It's just important to understand the price of cutoff, meaning if cutoff is important to us for whatever reason,
or necessary,
right? Then we just need to understand that it could have a price on our ability, or it could have an effect on our ability to heal. And as an adult, we could choose that, at least for now. Right? We could always reconsider it in the future, but if as an adult we're allowed to consider that.
And I have both cut off and then reconsidered my cutoff. So I've done both in my life. And I think you're right. It's like the law of gravity. Gravity will have a consequence, but sometimes that consequence is okay. But gravity is still gravity. It's still, that's just the nature of how the universe is put together in relationships and emotional connectedness.
Yeah.
Well, we'll bring this to a close today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope you will join, and I will hope you will click the bell to get all the new videos coming out. Thank you, Yitz, for joining me.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me. Yes, we will.
And I want all of you to have a great day and be wise.
You don't need love and approval from your parents as an adult. Not needing this love and approval is not a lack of love, nor is it a disrespect for your parents. Their need for you to seek it from them is about them and not you. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and comment on this video. We respond to the comments that people put on there. This video is entitled Building Up Your Ability to Go Without Love and Approval of Your Parents as an Adult. First of all, you don't need love, respect, approval from your parents as an adult. We just don't need it. We're adults. As children we do, but not as adults. Would it be nice? Of course it would be nice, but it's not needed. This feeling or need is a carryover from our childhood. Many adults who have been programmed to see parental approval as normal and the right thing to seek. When we become adults, we become brothers and sisters to our parents, not parents to children. They're adults, we are adults. I believe this need and desire, even addiction for love, approval, and acceptance, causes many who have grown up in dysfunctional families a tremendous amount of pain. I hear it all the time. Adults who receive this growing up don't need it. Those who grew up without it crave, chase, and hustle for it. And again, if you got it, you don't need it. If you didn't get it, then we search for the rest of our lives for it. Number 2, not needing it, not needing this approval, acceptance, or even a lack of love is not disrespect for our parents. Often the message from parents and internal feelings inside us make us tend to feel we're disrespecting them or not loving them if we don't need their approval or their acceptance. Many of us feel like we owe our parents, and some parents feel you do owe them for all that they have done. However, that's a dysfunctional belief, an unhealthy belief. They also may believe that you should be accepting their advice, needing their acceptance, and deferring to them because they are your parents. That's appropriate when you're children. It's not appropriate when we're adults. We do not owe our parents. They chose to have us. They chose to raise us. This was their responsibility that they chose. Kids don't owe parents for being cared for and being given a good life, food, clothing, schooling, a new car. Kids don't owe their parents for that. That's something parents can choose and do choose to give. And in fact, if they don't give it, if we're a child growing up, then it's criminal. Because if we have a child, we have to take care of them and raise them and take care of their basic needs. After we become adults, we then internalize the right to make our own decisions, choose our own path, live life as we choose it, even if our parents would not choose that way, even if our parents would not live that way. They don't have to live with our choices. We have to live with our choices. Now, certainly our choices might affect them. If I decide I've been living in the same hometown with my parents for all my life, and then I decide I want to move 3 states away, well, that would affect them. I understand that, and I can be sensitive and empathetic to that. But it's still my decision to make. I'm not here to just stay near them. That's not why I was made or became a child of theirs. I'm not saying all parents maliciously feel that you want you to choose what they would choose. It's just for many parents, they just held it for so many years, parents forget or never learn to give up that parental role. They never gave up that role. And probably their parents never gave up that role of continuing to parent their children when they were adults. Now, if you're entangled with your parents, with housing, finances, watching kids, or childcare, then we may feel there might be a quid pro quo. For this, you get that. We do this for you, so you need to listen and agree with us and get our approval. But I don't live with a quid pro quo. If you wish to watch my children, as I might say to my parents, that's fine. I would certainly appreciate that, and it would help me. But it doesn't mean I have to purchase the car you would like me to purchase, not the car I would like to purchase. Having this freedom from parents means we do have to take responsibility for our own choices and the consequences of our choices. And this can be difficult for many of us because that's a part of growing up and being adult. We call it, I've got to be an adult today. I'm adulting, which means I've got to do those things and take the responsibility for the decisions and do those things I'd rather have somebody else do for me. But that's what an adult does. If I do what my parents say, some of us immaturely might feel, then I have an immature right to blame them for the choice. So if I just go by their approval and acceptance and do what they want, guess who I can blame? Them. Very unhealthy pattern, very immature pattern. I need to take responsibility for my own choices. I also need to take responsibility and have a right to make poor choices, wrong choices. I have a right to do that. Now, it doesn't mean the universe may not smack me around, but my parents do not take that right away from me. I can make good choices. I can make bad choices. That's what an adult does. Thirdly, our parents' need for us to seek their approval and acceptance is often about them, not us. It is their issue. And I will say generously, they have programmed themselves, as well as having been programmed generationally, to need you to do this. Their parents expected it, so they expect it. And then they expect you to expect that from your kids. That's that intergenerational super self that gets passed on down. So I do understand that pattern, but just because that's the pattern doesn't mean I cannot break that pattern. Remember, this is their programming for what is a normal parent-to-child relationship or parent-to-adult-child relationship. That's their model from what they got from their parents. When we decide to change this relationship, for example, we want to acknowledge our awareness of our part in it and that it has been a norm for a long time. So there's nothing wrong with being empathetic or understanding where they're coming from. Now, if your parents don't make a change or don't grow up because you're saying, hey, no longer am I going to be looking for your approval, I'm just going to be making decisions that I choose to make. I may ask you for advice, but I'm not looking for your approval. And that if they want to continue, that you should continue the same deference, or that they become stingy or hurt with their acceptance and approval and love, don't change back. They need to go through the 3 stages of resistance, which I've talked about in other videos, before they might come to accept the new, not need approval you. They may need to go through that process. Give them time. After this, the issues is theirs and not yours to own or fix or change. They may stay stubborn or needy, but that's not you causing it. That is them choosing it. Some parents do feel if you don't need their acceptance or approval, then you won't need them anymore, or that they are expendable. For normal parents with issues like this, I simply say, I love you guys. I thank you for all your help, but we are different from each other. And I will be making some choices or changes or decisions that you may not make, but I still care about you and I want you in my life. So I make that very clear to be myself while staying connected. But I am going to stay I'm going to be making some decisions you may not like. And I may not seek your advice for that. Why didn't you come and ask your dad when you went to buy that house? Why didn't you come and ask him what he thought about that house? I thought I'd stick with the realtor, my attorney, and good friends who are construction people. They advised me very well. Why do I need to go to dad if I don't want to? I don't have to do that. I don't owe you that deference. If you want to go and ask dad, you have a full right to do that if you choose, but you don't have to do what they say. So how do we move into adult relationship with our parents? Remember, changes don't occur overnight for these long-standing patterns. We will have to reteach our parents how to deal with us, and that we're going to be living a new way, living apart from their approval and acceptance. We can be caring and gentle and very pattern aware, so we know we've participated in this too. Because if I, for the last 20 years, have always gone to them and asked them their opinion, then when something comes up and they start to give their opinion, if I go, oh, well, why are you giving your opinion now? Well, now, wait a minute. I've done this for the last 20 years. Why do I expect them to just be aware of that all of a sudden? So we have to be gentle and reteach the pattern. And I've had many who thought they would just start out saying, well, mom and dad, I don't need your approval anymore. I'm going to do what I want. But this is reactivity. This is the other side of the pendulum to getting all of their acceptance approval. Then I react over here on this side and say, I don't need anything from you. I'm a grown up now. And I always know when people say, well, I'm grown now. I'm grown up. If you ever have to say that, you're not. So I just heard that the other day in a restaurant. Somebody was saying that, and I'm going, and that's why you're not. Because if you are grown up, you don't have to say I'm grown or grown up. Versus a non-reactive response, which would be, hey, mom and dad, I know you might disagree with this decision, but this, I believe, is my preference, and it's the best decision for me. I know you love me, but this is what I'm going to choose. Envision your life not needing their approval. What would that look like? What would you do if both your parents were gone? What if a magic wand just disappeared them? What would you do and how would you live? I like to love your parents and live like they're gone. Now again, I'm not, if they're troubled parents, narcissistic parents, all kinds of other types of parents, well, now that rule doesn't apply exactly in that way. But it's still okay to be caring about your parents, but you can also live as though they are not here in terms of you making your own decisions. And my hunch is eventually they won't be here. It is the normal course of things that your parents die before you. Both of my parents have passed away. And I wanted to live who I was while they're alive and live who I was after they're gone. I did that sorta, and many times I failed, and I've been working on doing it better and better. And particularly my mother, who lived much longer, I was able to work on it much more with her without rejecting her. Ask yourself, what would be the downside of letting go of parental approval or that need for that acceptance? Or what would be the downsides of that? And deal with those consequences, those downsides. For example, they might stop watching your children. They might feel hurt and unloved. They might even think you're being an ungrateful child. They might retaliate. Your mother might cry. Your dad might cry. And maybe they would have hurt feelings. Maybe they would believe you're being selfish. All those are the downsides of not seeking their approval. Deal with fortifying yourself against those things. Lastly, grieve the loss of parental acceptance or love or approval, that some may need to accept that it will never happen, and resolve the feelings associated with accepting that I will never get my parents' approval and acceptance. And that's okay. They can be who they are, and I got to be who I am. Embrace needing their acceptance and approval as a fantasy you don't need. I hope you'll comment, like this video. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, and be wise. Hi everyone. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach. I've been helping people for 40 years to achieve a greater sense of self-differentiation and working on their family relationships, marital relationships, friend relationships, and the struggles that they have had with relationships. I specialize in adult children of alcoholics, adult children of narcissists, and I want to speak to the ACOAs and the ACONs and those who grew up in dysfunctional families, and particularly around this virus crisis that we've been having. This video is entitled Adult Children of Alcoholics and the Coronavirus Crisis. I've been talking a lot with clients who are adult children of alcoholics, and this crisis has been a real big punch to the gut for many people. And I'm not sure just ACOAs or ACONs, but for all of us, it's a punch in the gut. But I think it's particularly acute for those who grow up in dysfunctional families. They have felt like they've been regressing back to being more childlike inside, or they feel more like a child, even though they may be a 50-year adult. They feel like they felt less adult-like and more childlike, and it feels very disorienting to them. Even if they've been doing well for quite some time in their recovery and in their work, they're finding this crisis as being something that's dredging up some things from long ago. Many are struggling with a new awareness of their reactivity. They're finding themselves being more reactive. And they've reported these kinds of things to me. They've felt isolated, having a sense of loss, a loss of normal support, the difficulties in not being able to hug other people that they care about, and you have to, say goodbye to your grandchildren without hugging them, or relatives come to the door and you speak to them, but you don't want to have them come in, and it's really been a difficult time. Others have reported having bad dreams, having nightmares, and again, they've said, I haven't had those for a long, long time. Now they're starting to experience some nightmares and some bad dreams. There's a widespread fear of scarcity, fear of abandonment, feeling a strong sense of victimhood that they hadn't had for a while. Unhealthy family members may have become more dependent or needy on them, particularly unhealthy family members. A loss of identity, feeling more caught up in chaos and drama that they had left behind long ago. A tendency to avoid feelings. They might feel nervous and anxious and have difficulty calming down. They have become more reactors than actors, and so they find themselves overreacting. They have reduced their self-care because they feel more lethargic. They might even feel depressed. There are some who have gone out and bought I had one client bought $1,500 worth of groceries so that if somebody around her, she would have food for them. And again, it's that over-functioning part. Not that it's not kind on her part, but it's that over-functioning ACOA part that will go out and buy all these things to make sure everybody's okay, because we learned that long ago. There can be increased anger. They've reported resentment, feeling hurt, even pain. Have had several ACOAs who have had gut pain, chest pain, back pain, again, that they haven't had for a long time. They've reported judging themselves more harshly and other people as well. They have this higher anxiety due to an uncertain future and many other symptoms as well. But most all of these symptoms connect with the adult child of an alcoholic symptoms. And if you read Janet Woititz's book, Woitiz, she talks about the 14 characteristics of an adult child of an alcoholic. And those symptoms really get triggered and have during this crisis. And one of the reasons why it does is because our society and the crisis that is happening, our society turns more into like our alcoholic home growing up. And that our society is that dysfunctional family that we grew up in, and how people treat each other at the grocery store, how there's scarcity, and those kinds of problems arise. And again, society becomes a larger family of origin, but one that's dysfunctional, and we find ourselves operating in that. ACOAs will report denial, anger, high anxiety, irrational responses, worried about the unpredictability of other people, a focus on the crisis and not on themselves or people, a loss of freedom, scarcity of things we want and need. There is the coronavirus, and then there's the emotional virus, which has infected everyone. And that emotional virus will hit a number of people in different ways. And for ACOAs and ACONs, it really can be a punch to the gut. This crisis can trigger our traumas from growing up. So remember that. I'm going to talk more about how societies like that alcoholic family that we grew up in. What we certainly want to do is to work to detach from the drama and the chaos, make a place of solace and peace at home and in your own life, taking extra care to do that. We want to feel our feelings. We want to explore the history of our feelings. If we're feeling angry, resentful, take a look at where we learned anger, resentment, fear. Take a look back where you learned that. It will give you information and insight into what you're feeling now as a result of the crisis. See how the crisis and everything happening around you is a repeat of growing up in an alcoholic family or a dysfunctional family. And by doing that, I think we can gain some distance from the crisis and gain some detachment. If we can see, hey, these are old feelings that are being dug up, and these are old reactivities that we have. Also, with the reduced travel, and don't go out unless it's essential kind of rules. Well, of course, that's a go to your room. We're all told by society to go to your room and stay there. Go to your house and stay there. Well, for many of folks who grew up in dysfunctional homes, go to your room and stay there was not a pleasant thing. And it was very difficult. And then we end up being isolated there. Well, being isolated growing up was very common. We have parents who are parents or leaders are fighting. Our parents fought growing up, now the leaders are fighting. Politicians, health professionals. The governor says one thing, the president says another, the health officials say another. And everybody's fighting about the data, the information, what you should do. And that raises our anxiety that my parents are not being adult for me right now. And many times our leaders aren't being adults for us right now. We certainly have an uncertainty of the future, which we experienced growing up as well. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's dad going to be like when he comes home drunk after work? He stops by the bar and comes home, and what's that going to be like? Every day, we don't know what's going to happen. And in a crisis, every day you don't know what's going to happen. And that mirrors the growing up in a dysfunctional home. Fear sets in with scarcity and loss. for many ACONs or ACOAs, they grew up with some poverty or some financial insecurity. I don't know if there's going to be enough food. We were poor. Dad was an alcoholic. Mom was an alcoholic. We didn't have much. In fact, I had to go scrounge around for things, you might say, if you were growing up. And so scarcity is a problem and a fear and a loss of that security and loss of, everything's going to be okay. We didn't have parents telling us everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be here for you as a parent. Share with me your feelings. That wasn't happening in alcoholic homes. It wasn't happening in adult children narcissistic homes. The narcissist didn't care what you were feeling or thinking, or the narcissistic parent. It's just, come on, just grow up and stop crying. Why is this bothering you? So we can feel shut down and not heard. And if we're isolated, then we don't feel heard. There can be increased anxiety at work, in which bosses can become more demanding or more reactive at work. And we find relationships can struggle there also. I've also talked in the past about how workplaces end up being alcoholic families, but it's called the workplace, and it acts very much like an alcoholic home. And we wonder why we struggle with that. Because it's very much acting like what we knew when we grew up. Marriage relationships can become tense and stressful, and so your home becomes more like the home you grew up in. Even though it might have been calm for a while, now it gets disrupted with the virus. I have many couples arguing about the coronavirus, about being quarantined and restricted movements. One husband's mad that the wife went out to the grocery store, now it's come back and infected the kids. And then they got to argue over that even very intensely. And they will fight over, well, do you think we should have this trip or should not take this trip? And then they will disagree on how safe and what you should do to keep yourself safe. And if they disagree, then that becomes more tension and stress in the family. And when there's stress, that pushes enmeshment. And that's that if you don't agree with my beliefs, then you're wrong. And I'm angry and resentful at you. Because you have to believe exactly the way I believe. When we all believe a little different about the virus and about the crisis. We all have some different opinions. We all have differing experiences of knowledge or science or just awareness of things. And so we're going to disagree. We want to be sure to allow others to have their fears, have their opinions and beliefs, and even irrational beliefs, conspiracy theories, which I've heard for weeks now, and don't try to change others. Just hold on to your own opinions and your own beliefs. Be self-differentiated. It's you stay on your side of the tennis net, as I use the tennis court analogy. You stay on your side of the tennis net, I'll stay on my side of the tennis net. You can have all those beliefs you want, and these are my beliefs. I may not believe that particular conspiracy theory, but you can if you want to. I hope it doesn't get you too reactive about that. And certainly I don't know everything about what's going on in the world or what's happened and all of those kinds of things, and we have to rely on information we're given because it's not firsthand for me. So we all have to rely on what we're being told. Be careful about, as an adult child of an alcoholic, doing greater amounts of people pleasing, being over responsible, and having no boundaries. Be careful about being pushed into that as a result of the crisis. Take care of yourself, not just take care of others. Resist overfunctioning, which is easy to do. You are not responsible for everything and everyone. In my own life, as I see clients, I use a portion of that money to help other people who are around and who are friends of mine who are out of work. They're laid off. They may only go live from check to check. And so how can I take my limited abundance and be of help to them and help them through this difficult time? Can't save the whole world, but I can be a help to those who are right on that edge. Learn to say no, or keep saying no. It's okay to say no. You don't have to please everyone because they are anxious, upset, or fearful. You don't have to please them. And you are not responsible or the cause of their feelings. And again, if somebody's upset and then they share some knowledge or what they believe they have knowledge about the coronavirus, and I don't agree with it, then they can get irritable and upset with me. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to share that same belief, and it's okay for you to believe that, but I'm not going to feel forced to have to believe what you believe. I could be wrong, but I could be wrong about anything in life. I can only go by what my subjectivity and what my paradigm is. I can't live out of your paradigm. I can only live out of mine. And so, this is my best guess at these. This is your best guess. And we're both just human, and we both can err. And that's okay. That's going to happen. Be careful about ignoring your own feelings and your own impulses. Identify and explore your feelings. Don't just push them down and deny them. And I've had greater number of clients doing that because they feel more stressed and anxious, and they can't, and they're cutting off that healthy feelings that they have so they can identify what's going on with them. Because for so many years they block their feelings and they push them down. ACOAs and ACONs are experts at doing that to survive. Not because they're defective or worthless or bad or stupid, or that's what they learned growing up after years and years of experience. Controlling other people, which is another thing ACOAs might tend to do, and we learn to control other people because we had to control other people or work at controlling other people so that we could survive. And so we might tend to find ourselves doing that more during this crisis. Let go of control. Control you, not all of your environment or all the others around you. Let your family have their feelings, their actions. Accept them. It's okay to have boundaries. And if someone is out, doesn't care about picking up the virus and is out there being maybe irresponsible in that way, you can have boundaries and say, hey, we can get together after the crisis is over. I don't want you to come and infect grandma, grandpa, kids, or whatever. That's your choice to just go do whatever you're doing. This is my choice to feel safe and to be responsible. Perfectionism is another concern we would have for ACOAs. Resist black and white thinking and right and wrong thinking. There's only A or B, right or wrong, black or white, all or nothing. And that's A and B thinking, which can keep us stuck and keep us very frustrated. Look for the C options. In other words, it may not be this, it may not be this. Okay, what's a third option that I could have? And usually those option C's are much more healthy. And usually an option C means I accept and take care of me, and I accept you. I don't have to do what you do, you don't have to do what I do, and I still love and regard you. Seeing myself as a victim. Another thing that happens with ACOAs and ACONs, you are not a victim, but an actor and a participant in your life. You're an adult now, and you have an adult who can parent the inner child, take care of the inner child, use the adult to act and for executive functioning, use the inner child to know what's going on inside of you and deep inside of you. How is that inner child doing with the crisis? How's the little Jerry doing with the crisis? How's the big Jerry doing with the crisis? And those are two different parts of us that we want to keep in touch with. And I do recommend like Inner Bonding by Margaret Paul and books like that, Charles Whitfield, Healing the Child Within, that we are aware of our inner child and how's that inner child dealing with the coronavirus. It seems like it's just us that's kind of out of control as adults, when it may be the inner child that's kind of out of control. We've been functioning well for a while. Now we need to recheck in with that inner child and see how they're doing with the crisis. How is your little you doing inside there? Reading into other people's actions and thoughts and beliefs or words. It's very easy to do, particularly if we're highly charged or sensitive or reactive. It's very easy to read into other people's actions, their telephone calls, what they say to you. And so we want to be very careful about reading into other people's actions. Many times, if I start to read into what they're saying, what they're thinking, I might stop and say, hey, I'm confused. Let me see if I'm clear. Is this what you're saying? Or could you explain that to me? Rather than me just jumping to the conclusion and reading into everything they're saying and doing. It's easy to do. Stop. Be calm. Calmness is everything. In a video that I did, it's about an hour and a half long. Calmness is everything. Stop. Be calm. Think versus reacting. And be generous with your interpretations of others. You want to be generous in your interpretation of what others are saying or doing. And remember, they're under an awful lot of stress too. The whole society is under stress. At the grocery store, and if they're not quite as polite, not quite as, then we give them a break and go, hey, let me just do my stuff and just go on. I might even say a positive word to them, and say, I know it must be difficult. I wanted to share some of these things with you because I know the crisis has really affected a lot of people and a lot of people I've been talking to and who are clients of mine. I hope that you will visit my website, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com, and I hope you'll join the site. You can do that by logging in and just putting your email address in there. I hope you'll join my YouTube channel, this channel that this video is on, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems, and I hope you'll subscribe to the channel so you get all the new videos. Join my Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. We're putting a whole bunch of new things up on there. And on Facebook, I'm starting to do more live videos or live broadcasts on Facebook. There's lots of new things coming. I appreciate you listening to me today, and I hope you will be safe. Take care of yourself. Be generous with others. Not over-functioning, be generous. There's a difference. Be generous with others and work to be calm. Calm will help you see it through. Thanks for watching.